Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Hi, Kushbu. Good
I,
afternoon to you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out to be a part of this.
no, I'm really happy to be a part of this. When I heard about this initiative, I was like, okay, finally there's something about the education industry, the edtech industry. And seeing so many entrepreneurs out there who are part of this podcast is amazing to see other like minded individuals in the same industry. So thank you for inviting me here.
It is my pleasure. It's our pleasure to have you on the show. So, Kushbu, let's get started. My first question is usually it starts off, with if you can walk us through your journey. I know that, you are involved in two projects at the same time. One is the Ed Caliber, and another thing is Boarding Pass for All. Is that correct?
Yes, boarding pass
Uh,
was correct.
yeah. So, I'm sure, both are interlinked. But um, if you can walk us through your journey, what led you to uh, getting into education and finally having started at Caliber.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to start with, it never started as okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. It didn't
Right.
start as that. Like entrepreneurship was like far away from what I had in mind about my career or future. But just things happen, and I took opportunity whenever it came for things that I had passion for, and eventually I got here. So basically, when I graduated, I did my bachelor's in electronics and communication engineering from Gujarat. And after that, I got a chance to teach digital signal processing in SVNIT Surat. So during that time when I was teaching, I had that in me, like, this is interesting, like finding different ways to make sure that the student understands what the concept is. And somehow from the beginning, I was always, I didn't know consciously, but subconsciously through my teaching, I was always trying to make sure that students understand the real world part of it, like why they are studying.
Yeah.
So that was there, but just like any other bachelor in India, I also wanted to do masters. Everybody was doing masters, going abroad for their masters. I was like, okay, I will also go. So that time I didn't have like a particular goal or such. Like just like any other person, I was just following what others around me did. So I pursued my masters in engineering from University of Waterloo in Canada. And I think that's where I got to see different perspectives of teaching and learning. Especially just when I'm giving exam here, it's more of oh, you can bring a cheat sheet of formulas, and the questions are not about like, okay, what is the formula of this? The question is about how will you use this formula in this situation.
Right.
So that I mean, like I said, that practical part was somewhere there, and this just gave it a like more platform to emerge out. And I felt like this makes sense. Like why was I cramming formulas back there, right? I can easily Google it now. So
Right.
what I thought was I wanted to share that perspective with students in India, and I wanted to share like how I struggled through my engineering years. I just wanted to share so that the current students don't struggle that way, and they have a perspective early on, so that they could start their journey towards practical application early as well. So
Right.
that's what inspired me to start a platform called Boarding Pass for Success, where I conducted seminars and webinars for engineering students, especially in India. And I invited speakers who were different industry professionals and researchers in STEM field. So I wanted to, and also those individuals were from MIT, Stanford, Google. What I wanted to show students was okay, they are working in Google or Amazon, but it's not how they started their journey. Like we all start the same way. It's never like, oh, they are working in these companies, so they're like different people. No, they have the same journey as us. And I wanted to remove that imposter syndrome from the
Right.
students, right? It's I mean, I still have it sometimes. I'm aware of it now, but initially we are not aware of it.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to show to the students, that how they got there, how was their journey, not just
Right.
see where they are right now, but how they got there. And
Right.
that can inspire them to work on some similar projects. It can inspire them to like work on things that matters most in the industry, rather
Right.
than just focusing on marks, because we all know it. I mean, it's important, but not as important in the end.
Right.
So that's what I started with. And uh, again, I didn't know it was an entrepreneurial journey. I was just creating an education, awareness platform through that. So I went to India as well. I used to spend 3 months every year in India.
Right.
Just a quick note before that, I quit my job because I felt like I wanted to pursue this. I didn't know exactly what while I was working here in Canada, but I felt like if I don't uh, pursue this now, I might repent in the future.
Right.
And it's good because I haven't looked back. It was difficult to quit my job, but I knew I wanted to do something in education field to help students out. So that's why I came to India and spent 3 months here figuring out what's going on. And that's where I conducted these seminars as well on inspiring engineering innovation, conducting seminars on robotics, just bringing awareness on these platforms. So yeah, I conducted the seminar in one university. Another university approached me. I gave a seminar there, and that's how we were able to give seminars in over 25 institutes in Gujarat, Maharashtra, and there were webinars in Tamil Nadu as well that we conducted. So that's when I created this partnership of like 25 universities, where we used to regularly conduct monthly webinars. Even when I was back in Canada, we used to conduct these webinars. And right now on Boarding Pass for Success, we have more than 60 plus career guidance interviews of these professionals. And anyone could just have like a free login and can watch those videos. It's a free platform for all the students out there.
Wow.
Now, while I was doing Boarding Pass for Success, I attended an entrepreneurship seminar in India while I was there. One of my friends who was a founder shared that, you know what, just come and attend this seminar. You might like it. And I think that's when that I realized, oh, I am on entrepreneurial journey, but I just didn't know it. So that's when I started to think more from the perspective of, okay, I've created this platform, but how do I sell these videos? Like the business part of it was in the picture, because if I am pursuing this, it has to be revenue based as well. Or
Right.
I should have like another income coming and then I can pursue this on the side. But what I
Right.
felt was I wanted to give my full time into this.
Hmm.
So, with more analysis and all these seminars, we also conducted in schools as well. So, it gave me both perspectives of how school students think and how college students think. And one of the most important feedback I got from these two different set of students was when we're talking about application based learning, right? So college students were like, oh, I wish I had this when I was in school. And when we were interacting with school students, their approach and feedback was, oh, this is really interesting, I want to learn more. So I think that's where this I could see this distinction of where we can make change the most, or rather than make a change, that's a later part, but where we can help students the most, like
Right.
we can start early. So meanwhile, I was also selected here in Montreal as one of the top 10 early stage startups. So I was a part of the cohort of a Yes Elevate program here in Montreal, and being a part of that program really helped me to like cater to different things of like creating a business canvas model and what is value proposition, understanding different terms on the that are encompassing the entrepreneurial
Entrepreneurship.
journey.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that's where I got this more a boost of what I wanted to do ahead, and that gave me a really good perspective of what way I want to pursue. What should I continue towards boarding pass, or is school student like school area the most effective way to go about? So I think I chose that. But meanwhile, Boarding Pass for Success, we already had a lot of students. We have already signed up members on the website. So every month we continue to conduct webinars for the students in partnership with all of these universities that we had. So that is still going on. Like right now, it's on a break because right now at Caliber is at a stage where we are working on the launch. But
Yeah.
at that stage, it was still figuring out things in which we want to go. And I think after that, I participated in Canada India Acceleration Program Pitch Competition, and we won. We got an award of $10,000
Wow.
when we won the
Congratulations.
competition. Thank you, thank you. So that was back in March 2022. So that gave me an opportunity to create a prototype and understand using that amount. It gave me that opportunity to create the prototype and test out in the market. And because of these accelerated programs and the mentors I have had throughout, actually, that is why, because I am here, because all those little interactions that you keep having with people,
Yeah.
it leads like it makes you think something else, and then it lands you where you are. So
Right.
we created the prototype, we did user studies, we conducted market research. I conducted market research here in Canada. I was a part of edtech boot camps in United States. Currently I am incubated in IIM Bangalore, NSRCL. So it's a 1 year program as well. So I am able to see perspectives of these different countries and seeing where we can launch the product first, and how we can leverage the same content and also have it launched in other countries as well. So these little steps I could understand because of these programs and the interactions
Right.
I had with different startup founders. And that's how my entrepreneur journey has been so far. Understanding uh, understanding how it works, but also remembering why I started it. Because sometimes people give you different opinions which
Right.
have worked for them, but then you cannot keep implementing all of them, because you need to choose what sets for you, because then you
Right.
will just go astray and you'll be lost if you try implementing everything. So I
Yeah.
think that's something I learned, because I used to do that. Oh, this person, well, he or she has accomplished so much. They know, and they were right in what they were saying, but it just didn't apply to what I was doing. So
Right.
you need to choose the niche for the journey. That's what I learned throughout. And yeah, that's how I have been here talking to you.
Got it, Khushbu. Thank you. You know, what you've kind of shared so far gives a overview of what's been going on. But I'd like to, break down certain things because
Sure.
when you said, see, you basically went there to do your masters, and then you see some things that's very different, that you saw some things that's very beneficial. You just wanted to share it, right? Nothing else. And you thought you wanted to share it because you saw that this could help. When you think that this could help, that means there is a certain problem. So basically, you started off something very organically to help somebody who might have a problem to solve it. So I'd like to, kind of use this to reiterate that every entrepreneurship journey starts off with somebody trying to solve some problem without expecting kind of nothing, actually.
Yeah.
And can't get more organic than that. What I'd like to understand is what you're saying, what you've done, the kind of work that you've done. uh, I got this perspective especially because of another conversation that I had with a person called Suraj Perry, based in Hyderabad. He runs a startup called Gradwine. He helps people with application processes in the US. And
Okay.
you should check that company out. It's not like any other company, right?
Mhm.
And he said his USPs is having live mentors from the US who guide the people who are applying. They know the local information, the current information. They go so
Correct.
minute to the level of this university might be better than that, but your job opportunities are better there. So, weighing the pros and cons and stuff like that. So, the reason I'm talking all this is yours is also a very current event sort of a thing. The interviews that you've had will probably be, it'll be better for the Boarding Pass for Success to kind of keep going on with people who are working 2 years from now, 3 years from now.
Correct.
And now the question that I have is, the seminars that you conducted, what started first, the interviews with these people, or you conducting seminars for Indian universities?
I think the seminars, like conducting seminars for the universities, that started first because, like I said, I wanted to make sure that students understand like the practical part of learning. So
Right,
when I went to India, like I said, I used to teach in SVNIT Surat. So
right,
I,
right,
I went there first and I
right,
spoke to the HOD over there, and I said like this is something that I would like to share. I'm creating like sort of a mentor program for students. It's not something that that's already created, but I want to research how I can help students, how can we mentor them so that they could start early with the practical journey of their learning. So he was kind enough to like say, oh, just let's organize an expert talk, and you can like
right.
interact with students. And the first thing was, wait, why is it an expert talk? I'm not an expert, right? Like that's the first thought that comes. But then you realize that the expert is because of the experience,
Right,
that
right,
okay, you went through this the same process that other students are going right now, and then you continued your journey, you did this, you did that. So to share that is an expert talk. So like it took me some time to come, like I said, imposter syndrome,
get
right?
out of imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that's how it started. I wanted to share about like the practical application of learning. We conducted the seminar, and I had my husband accompanying me as well. He At that time he was doing his PhD in robotics.
Right,
So he also conducted seminar on robotics, on not just like, because when you talk about robotics, it's just like a robot that comes in front of you. That's the general image. But
correct.
he also wanted to share like the thought process behind problem solving. It's not robotics. It's not just that robot and like
Right, right,
that it would do things for you. But it's more about like problem solving, how to go about this, how to solve this. So he also accompanied me on all of these seminars as well, and I think that's how the journey started, where we visited other universities as well and conducted those same seminars. So when I came back to Canada, I was reflecting on all those conversations and the feedback we had, and I started this. I wanted to launch this engineering career online summit. That was the name, ECOS. I was referring to it then, where we would have a 3 day event online, and we would invite these different industry professionals from
right,
different companies, and people would buy the ticket, or like it's just like a virtual event happening online. uh, I worked on all of those interviews with 35 professionals at that time. We
right.
created that event for that. And I created like brochures and everything. So for me at that time, it was like, oh, I have created this wonderful platform that doesn't exist out there. So I would
Yeah,
have like students coming in like this. My tickets will be sold like this, right? Such a naive point of view at that time. But it's always like, even when in India there's something happening, you hear about it from your parents, family, friends, relatives. "Oh, this is
yes,
something is happening," and you go there and like the event is good. So you feel like, oh, if the event is good, if it's going to give some value to you, automatically people will come out.
yeah,
But it's, as you know, it's not the case
right,
always.
right, right.
That's when I realized the value of what marketing is, what sales is, like a completely different perspective. But again, it was a learning process. Like
Right, right.
I was still happy to have. We had 30 students who signed up for the platform. So for me, it was a big deal.
Wow, that's
That
not bad at all.
exactly not bad at all, right? I still had 30 students coming up, but how I had
You
envisioned
were a
was,
topper, weren't you?
sorry,
You were a topper while studying, weren't you?
yeah,
I
always
can
having
see
like
that
high
attitude.
expectations. I
You're
know.
not happy with 30 signups in the start. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, not bad.
right now I think about it, I was like, oh my God, 30 students is a lot.
Yeah, it's a
30
lot.
students have
Yes.
to up, it's a lot. Uh, and and the thing is, like during that time, in my mind it was like, oh, I will have like thousands of students signing up for this. There are so many students, this and that and all. But it's not like that. So like I had to go back in my mind when I was a student.
Right,
Like, okay,
right.
what did I care about when I was an engineering student, did I care about the real world part of learning? No. Did I care about, jobs? I was like, oh, I'm still in the second year, third year. I'll see when time comes to it. That was me at that time. So,
Right.
I mean, there were a lot of learning processes where I had to reflect back on like what I or what a person in that situation would have done. So that was the time when I understood like the customer point of view. What are their pain points? What are the challenges they are facing? What are
Right.
they ready to spend money on? I mean, students would spend like 600 rupees, 700 rupees, or like on movie or something like that in a day. But like even like a 500 rupee ticket for a 3-day event like that seems more to a student. So I that's when I understood, like even when we conducted these different seminars, webinars, when we conducted them for free, we had like 1,500 registrations because we
Right.
had partnerships with these universities. Like there was one time when we had 2,000 registrations for a webinar that was coming in. But
Right.
when it
Right.
was something paid, student would think like, oh, I can get this for free. Why would I pay even $100 for
Right.
this? Something like that. So that's when I realized that if I want to continue the boarding pass journey, I have to keep that as an open platform for education. At that point, I didn't feel like bachelor students is the right target market if I want to make it a business model out of it. It's very later on when I was attending this cohort when the mentor said like success of a startup doesn't just depend on the revenue that it creates. It
Right.
also depends on the people you reach out to. And because up till that time, I wasn't seeing Boarding Pass as a successful platform
Right.
just based on the assumption that it is not creating revenue.
Right.
So that was the assumption I had, but eventually I figured out it's not that. Like I mean, that platform is still there, available to all the students. I still have students signing up, getting the e-certificates of the webinars. It's still going on, which means that it is reaching out to
Right.
people out there.
Right.
So, but I felt like uh, that was the end towards creating a business model. So I had to segue towards what works. And I think even initially there were mentors who had told me like if you want to create a business model, school like K to 12 is the right market for you. But because I was so connected to my idea of creating that change for engineering students, I was still in that journey. But I'm glad I took that route because I explored, researched everything, and
Right.
because of that I have the perspective of what a student should have right now so that
Right.
they don't face these similar challenges when they are an engineering student or going out to work in the industry.
Right.
So, yeah.
Got it. Got it, Kushbu. Kushbu, I'm going to go back a little bit just to, make it that much more clear because when you said you created a 3-day summit and you had spoken about 35 people, industry professionals or industry experts to kind of share their experience to the students. So you had already recorded those interactions or were they going to come live on the summit and talk on those 3 days?
I had recorded those interviews, the reason being that the professionals from different time zones.
Right.
And
Right.
I that time wanted to like make it like a good video with the branding of boarding pass for success and all of those things. Seminars and like Zoom and everything was quite new. And I'm talking
Right.
about
Right.
2019 at that
Right.
time. People were still using Zoom, but only for like professional purposes. And it was new for me that time to record these videos on Zoom.
Right.
So that time, like having all of these, conducting that online with all of them together didn't seem like a good approach, or rather, didn't have the resources to do that. And
Right.
again, it wouldn't have worked out because people were from different time zone as well. So I thought it was a good idea to have these recorded videos. The reason being that students can watch it at their convenience anytime. They are not bound by that time,
Got
and
it.
yeah, they have that flexibility to watch it.
And you would play these recordings in the 3-day summit that you organized. Was that the plan?
Correct. So we used to like I created like 3 different pages on
Right.
my website, and each day each page would be unlocked by the student. They would just have to like sign up, log in because they already bought the tickets.
Right.
So yeah, that's how they could unlock different videos for the day, and they could just play whichever industry they are from. They could just search for that industry and then just look at that video.
Got it, Kushbu. And you said in the start, these exact interactions that you've had can be accessed for free. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's still on the website out there.
Okay, now it's not paid or something. So students who would
No,
like to go visit, they can go and okay.
correct. I was like, I mean, why should I restrict it? Like, uh, it's not like it's going to make that big of a sale or something that I should spend that much time on, because Boarding Pass started as more of an educational awareness platform.
Right,
I felt like I wanted to keep that way. There were many times when I tried different approaches, like like a 500 rupees you pay for it and you can access all the videos. That's still under my radar, but the reason I have not implemented was I wanted to make sure that maximum students sign up on the platform. That was my
right,
main goal, and that would
right.
not have happened if I kept it paid in the beginning, because it's not. I cannot expect students to, without seeing the videos, just understand like, oh yes, real world application is important, or listening to this speaker will help me. So I wanted first for them to understand what it is and then
Right.
maybe think of a paid plan. But again, I haven't yet implemented it because I want to have as many students as much as possible on boarding. That's my goal right now. On Boarding Pass for Success, have as many signups and have as many members.
Got it, Kushbu. And when you came to India, you said, you kind of expanded tying up with universities to go and give seminars. So you did all this when you came down here for the 3 months
Yeah,
a year.
I mean, sorry, when I came down with my
No, when you came down here for 3 months every year, that's the time during which you did it, or
well,
you continued to do it even online from, once you went back there as well.
I continued online as well, and because of COVID, it was possible during that time to do it online because people
Right,
are now open to being online and understanding the virtual connectivity to anywhere in the world, right? So that's when we started conducting webinars as well. Before that, it was just seminars.
got it.
Uh, yeah, we started webinars from 2020.
Got it. And in these interactions that you've had with the industry professionals, right, in different domains, what is the kind of content or what is the kind of interaction that you wanted to bring out, um, which would be valuable to the to the people who are watching it? So was it more like, how what you study is linked or not linked to the job you do and what you can expect at work, and was it about cracking interviews? So what did you want to mainly focus on during these interactions?
Right. So my main focus was for them to give them uh, what's happening in the industry right now,
Right,
because we all
right,
have assumptions that, like, I had a lot of assumptions that oh, I'm not from software background, so even when I got a job in BlackBerry, it was I started as a software testing specialist, and I had that
right,
assumption that even when they came on campus, there were different stalls, so where you could just interact with different departments in BlackBerry to understand the process. And I was just standing in line for the electronics department, and there was this queue here for software. So suddenly that queue was like the students had already finished speaking, and I was there. So I just happened to have a conversation. There was no expectation because I knew I'm not from the software background. And you won't believe, but my first line to that employee, I mean, the person who came there, was, oh, sorry, I'm not from the software background. And he was like really surprised. Like, there are students coming up and like giving pitch about why they should hire them. And here is this person who is like, oh, I'm not from the background. So he was like really curious. And then he asked me a couple of questions like, okay, what did you do? And then he was like, I talked to him about my journey as a lecturer in SVNIT, how I used to interact with students, and he saw how I was communicating, how I was answering in detail about what he was asking, and for me it was just a conversation. I didn't know he was like actually interviewing me. So then he said, "You know what? All things you just explained. Those are all the skills required for software testing. You don't only it requires only 10% coding, and that's all. You don't even need to code in the software testing part."
right,
And I
right,
got the job, apparently. So because I was so naive, I went with a very naive point of view, right? And but these are the things I wanted to bring out. That just
right.
because you are not from a certain background, it doesn't limit you to pursue anything out there. I
Correct.
had a friend in University of Waterloo who came from the mechanical engineering background, and he pursued
Right.
computer science, and right now
Hmm.
he's working at Meta as a software engineer. So it
Wow.
doesn't really matter what field you come from, and that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to share main with the students, to not limit themselves. The other important thing was for me to make students know what skills are important right now in industry. Uh, Skills as if like the technical skills as well as the soft skills as well, so that they could start working on them from now. They're at least, if they don't work on it, they're aware of it. Like this is what
Right.
this person working at a certain industry or in the certain segment is using right now for his job, his or her job. So those are the things I wanted students to know. And the third thing is how they could utilize their time right now in college, so that they
Right.
have a portfolio when they graduate. It's not like fourth year is over, I
Right.
need a job. Like portfolio wouldn't happen overnight. So that was the thing, to make them understand how they could leverage their time right now in college to work on these different projects. Uh, and that is one of the things I saw even while I was giving interviews, or when I was in the research process of what works in the hiring process, is if they ask you a question, and if you have no experience, if you just know about it reading on Wikipedia, but if you have never experienced it, you won't have much to share, and the interview would look,
Right.
yeah, it very like, it wouldn't make sense for they won't get that feel that you are in it. So to share that share about that particular skill, you need to have an experience attached to it, like what you did with that skill, what challenge came upon,
Right.
because you face these sort of questions, right? Tell me like your weakest weaknesses and strengths, and what challenges you did you face, how did you overcome them. And you cannot, it has to be organic. So that's what
Yeah.
I, if they experience that in college, they will be able to share more experiences during the interview, and it's a smoother process for them to graduate. So these were the three main things that we spoke about. But I always asked the interview the speaker at the end, like, if you got a chance to give an advice to your younger self, what advice would it be? So just to give a recap of, okay, what they should have done, because students are at that stage, they could do it right now.
Right.
So
Right.
these were the aspects I wanted to cover during all of these seminars and webinars.
Got it, Kushbu. Great. And this BlackBerry interaction that you had in that stall is obviously after your masters. Is that correct?
Yeah, during my masters.
During
So
your
like
masters in
for
Canada.
internship. Yeah. So I did my internship in BlackBerry, and that translated to a full-time job after I graduated as well
Got
in
it.
BlackBerry. Yeah.
Got it. And you said you spoke about what you focused while interactions. Just to break it down a little bit more. So, how did you, what did you do to reach out? Did you use what platforms did you use? Did you use LinkedIn? What was your pitch like, and how were these people responding to you?
All these speakers that I invited,
Yeah.
they are all my friends.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because so I studied in University of Waterloo in Canada, and like I mentioned previously, my husband was doing his PhD in robotics in
PhD.
United
Right.
States in
Right.
WPI. So
Right.
all of his friends and all of my friends, I first reached out to them. So those were like the first 30-35 people whom I had interviewed,
Right.
and then through mutual friends, reaching out on LinkedIn, I was able to conduct more webinars every month.
Right.
And that's how I reached to like 40-45 individuals more. And uh, there were a few speakers who came, reached out to me on their own, because they saw
Wow.
that
Okay.
I
Right.
have been a part of this initiative that helps students, and they were like, oh, we want to help students as well. So that's when I realized that there are so many people out there who have faced that journey. They want to help students so that they don't face the same challenges. And that's where I created a mentoring platform initiative on Boarding Pass for Success. So initially, my thought process was, I am doing this without money. I'm not charging anything.
Yeah.
But for
Yeah.
me, it was like, if these speakers are giving their time, they should be compensated. with money as
Right.
well. So that
Right.
it was my thought process during that time. Like they should be
Right.
compensated for their time. Uh, but again, when it comes to mentoring, brutal honesty, like even when we think about mentoring, it's like it's free advice. Why would I pay for mentoring? That's the general idea that I have seen, even among
Correct.
students, even right now. Why would I pay someone for advice? And now you have ChatGPT. Why would I pay someone for giving me advice? As a student, you don't understand that the experiences that they come with,
Yeah.
it can help you. They realize it later on. You know how I said
Right.
about the feedback I got from engineering students during application based learning? They were like, oh, I wish I had this in school.
Yes. Yes.
So it
Yes.
all of these speakers, industry professionals, it was the same for them. Like because they are in the later phase, like in the working stage, they are like, oh, I wish I had this platform that reads that gives these seminars to students. I wish I had this. So it's always like the third perspective, and you can see like a clear picture. When you are in it as a student, you don't realize its worth.
Right.
So along with that, the thing was I was already on the Excalibur journey along with that. So maybe I could not give too much focus on like reaching out or conveying the right message of how mentoring helps. Well, for me, I felt like I did everything. I spent a lot of time doing that because we
Hmm.
had all of these students coming during seminars, webinars. Uh, we used to promote this mentoring platform over there as well during those seminars, and I received a lot of people for inquiries, but they were not willing to pay for it, and it was not like a big fee, like minimum fee per hour that we charge for someone giving their time to you.
Right.
So I
Right.
think that's when I realized that this cannot be paid, or I'm not still at that phase where I know how to translate this into sales or into revenue. So either of
Correct.
the things, uh, but I felt like even some of the students I know, when they're like really smart students, so when they had to do a course online, uh, it was like 99 rupees for that course. So that student was like, oh, I can just do this on YouTube for free. Why would I pay 99 bucks? Right? They don't know what expertise it is coming with,
Right.
but we don't do that. Like even we, if we just giving them benefit of doubt, even we do that at times.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So I felt like that is not something that I want to pursue because, and I knew later on that in entrepreneurship, uh, first, if people don't know about the product, first you have to spend a lot of time, resources, money, everything on educating them of what it is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the selling part comes. Whereas if people are already aware of, like courses online or something, they're already familiar with it, we don't have to spend on educating them what it is. So I
Right.
felt like it was taking a lot of time for me to educate what this is. And I didn't feel like it is something I wanted to pursue as well. So the mentoring platform is still there. But now we let students come to us. We don't like put it out there like, we will charge this much amount for an hour. We let students come. If they're interested in mentoring, then we speak to them, understand the student first, that is it worth the mentor's time as well, and then we connect them to mentors. But again, it's not on a paid basis right now. We just connect them to help them understand. And there are these
Wow.
industry individuals who said like, we want to volunteer, we don't want monetary aspect out of it. So only those individuals who are okay with that, we connect them to those mentors. And right, and then later on with Boarding Pass for Success, we partnered with an education overseas education consultancy, AO. It's in Ahmedabad.
Right.
So what how we have partnered is the students who come to them early on in 12th grade or early engineering phase, who want to apply for abroad, and they have to create a portfolio now, right? So
Right. Right.
they partnered with us so that the mentors can help them build the portfolio, and then their consultancy would just help them create a profile out of it as well. So that's how we have partnered, and we have we just recently did this partnership, and we have like two students, and there are three who who we are speaking with. So I think for me, after all of these experiences, like having these 2-3 people is also a good stepping stone
Yeah.
towards revenue for boarding pass for success. So yeah, so I never thought about boarding pass as a revenue part. I could have, and I could have turned it into that, but at that point of time, I didn't feel it the right way to go. So I just segued towards school students, and the major reason was also because that's where you can make that change early on in the
Right.
students' mindset. Plus,
Right.
it's the parents you are convincing, not the students. So
Correct.
parents are willing to invest money for their students during school, but when it comes to college students, it's the students you are talking with who are just reluctant because they just get their pocket money or something. They're reluctant to spend their money uh, on things like that. So yeah, that was the learning curve behind it.
Got it, Kushbu. Lot of value, basically. It's interesting because you really had this product. All you needed to do was, as you said, you could have done it. You could have productivized it if you wanted it, and it was, you had to kind of educate people as to how it was going to add value. But then, you had the other thing. But I'm coming to that. But you were talking about an entrepreneurship seminar that your friend kind of made you or convinced you to join, and then that kind of had an impact in what followed,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So what exactly happened? So at that point in time, you were doing still boarding pass for success. Am I correct?
That's correct. That's correct. I was still in my research phase of coming to India and understanding students, getting their feedback, talking to universities, professors, teachers, schools as well. So actually, I attended that seminar because I wanted to. So okay, that seminar was organized for uh, engineering professors uh, to train them so that they could help students with entrepreneurship. So it was to train professors with
Wow.
an
Okay. Train the
entrepreneurial
trainer
approach,
sort of a thing. Right.
train the trainer
Right.
sort of a thing. So
Right.
it was in Gandhinagar. So one of my very good friends, Nishank Shah, is an amazing entrepreneur and an amazing mentor so far he has been. So he was the one who was like, just attend this seminar right now. So I
Right.
went there with an impression of connecting with these professors who I
Mm.
could partner with for boarding pass seminars. I didn't go there for myself. I mean,
Right.
for the entrepreneurial part of it, I went there so
Got
that I
it.
could create that network, and I did create a network of professors there, who I
Hmm.
partnered with the universities further
Right.
for seminars and webinars. But it was me who ended up coming inspired out of it towards the entrepreneur journey, because there were many speakers, including my friend who was a speaker there as well, who were invited to speak about entrepreneurship. And when I listened to them, I was really inspired, and that made me realize that that's something I am doing. So yeah, that's how I got inspired. So that's how it happened.
And up until this point, you were not even like kind of going, you were still working. You were like, okay, this is something that I'm doing on my side. You were just passionate about it. You're not like, okay, this is going to turn out to be something that will take you. Got it. Fine.
Never. For me, it started as I want to create a mentoring program for students. Uh, but as and when things happened, it segued to conducting seminars and webinars. So as opportunity came in, I did take it. I did go for it.
Right.
So yeah, I never thought of it like, oh, make this as a big thing, because that was never on my mind. I never even thought in that direction. Like I said, entrepreneurship was never on my plate going forward. uh,
Got it.
and you have certain things in your again, assumptions and misconceptions, that only if you are this sort of a person can you become an entrepreneur. Like, this jugaad sort of a mentality that you have, it's hustling, right? So
Yes.
I never saw myself as a hustler. Like, for me, it was like, there are these certain type of people who are in business, who hustle and make things work. So I never saw myself that this is how it is. And I had that misconception and assumption that this is how people are in that field.
Right. Right.
It is eventually I figured out that you decide what sort of a person you want to be in that journey. If you want to pursue that, you don't have to fit in that profile. You
Right.
learn, of course, but that doesn't mean you cannot do it.
Right.
uh, there are so many entrepreneurs out there who do not have all the skills, right? For me, it was like entrepreneur has all the skills, selling and making a product and this, but eventually I learned that it's not how it is. That's why you have co-founders. That's how you have other people on board who can have the skills that you don't. And it's okay if you don't have those skills. You learn. So yeah, so that was never in my radar, but it happened. I learned. I spoke with people, and right now I am like full on my entrepreneurial journey towards Excalibur.
Got it, Kushbu. You said at one point you had to kind of, you took a diversion where, somebody told you K-12 is the way to go if you want to kind of monetize and, go in the revenue making and stuff like that. How did that happen? What are the events that led for you to take the diversion?
So the thing when someone told me about K to 12 when the market is there, that happened before boarding pass for success fund. So I mean, while I was in the boarding
Sorry.
pass for success journey, that time it happened when I was creating. I mean, when I was doing these seminars, my next path was okay. How can I create a course online where it talks about practical application of a subject? And that was an engineering subject at that point of time. So because I taught digital signal processing, I actually have started working on creating these different real world applications of digital signal processing, like why use Laplace transform, why use Z transform, and all of those things. It's just theory, but how will you use it out in real world? That was something I already
Right.
started working in. And that is the time when the mentor told me that, you doing this instead of focus the practical applications for students. So that advice was already given to me earlier. But for me, because I was so connected with this idea of doing it for engineering students, uh, I continued that journey. And it's later on with experiences, with feedback, I recalled that advice that was given to me earlier.
Right.
Because along with that, there were many people who, when I spoke with that, I'm doing this for engineering students, creating this practical application based course for them. They were like, why don't you do it for school students? So there were many who came along the way. So it was like those uh, those indications that I always got, you know, to segue, but I didn't. So then it came. Then there was a time when I was like, okay, I have done everything here. I think I have thought about all things. I think K to 12 is the way to go. But
Right.
so even right now, I feel like I wish I had like not spent those 2 years, for creating that course for engineering part, and rather focused on that towards school students. But it doesn't work that way. It's only when you
Yeah.
go ahead, you can look back and connect the dots of how it happened.
Yes. Yes.
It could happen in some different ways as well, but this is how it happened for me. That's just my thought process right now. So, like the for the question you asked, how it happened, the advice was given to me way earlier, but it's
Right.
only when I researched, took my own time, made my own mistakes, which I would advise others not to do. Like learn from others' mistakes and listen to others. That's also important, along with experiencing your own journey. So I think now I'm at a stage where I do my own research, but at the same time also um, think of what others are telling me from their point
Right.
of view, then implement if it matters in my journey.
It's easy after spending 2 years, when you look back, it's easy to say, I could have
Yeah,
skipped those 2 years, but it just you, unless and until you would have, because you were so connected with it, you were very much thinking from the shoes of people who were just about to graduate and go work. So probably you had to experience and realize for yourself that, okay, so I don't think it is the way it is. It is probably balance that you can try for, but yeah.
yeah. But actually, this the same thing happened with Excalibur as well. Excalibur started as a platform, like a
Right.
gamified learning platform for
Right.
students.
Right.
It wasn't for a specific subject that it is now on math. Initially, it
It's
was
math
like
now. Yeah.
science and math. Initially, it started that way. The idea was that.
Right.
So the whole idea was having like a 3D sort of an environment where students could play games and understand math and science and do that.
Right.
Now, it was just an idea. There was no prototype or anything before that. So for me to create a 3D environment, when I spoke with people, it actually takes like $500,000 to create that sort of a product out in the market, because
Wow.
it requires Unity developers, because you're doing it on as a gaming platform. Like there are different engines, Unreal, Unity. So one of them that we focused on was Unity, and it takes a lot of time to create those 3D characters, the 3D environment, thinking about this simulation that would happen. And it would take so much time to build that,
Right.
and me, without even showing that there's any traction or any proof of concept, but I went in there from that point of view. Again, for a very long time, I was connected to the 3D idea for a very long
Right.
time, actually. And even right now, I think, oh, I wish I would have saved that time. But again, right now, we are at a stage where we are launching the first phase of the product where it
Mhm.
is 2D. It is not 3D. 3D is in the future phase. But what
Fine.
we wanted to show was, do students like studying with the real world practice of math right now? So we picked one subject and we picked one grade, and we will release it as first phase of a product in the market, where students, instead of doing the theoretical word problems from textbooks, we give them real world case scenarios of that problem in real world and different careers, and then they use math to solve that problem on our platform with guided quizzes and progress tracking and giving feedback. So that's
Right.
what we focus on. And because I changed that from 3D to 2D, it significantly brought down the cost, significantly brought out the resources and the time that it will take to create that. So my goal is now to launch this product in the market, show revenue, gain early traction, see if people are willing to pay for that, and then turn this 2D to 3D in future. Because I see that initially it was making a 3D platform, the real world application of it, everything in one.
Right.
But eventually I realized I first need to validate whether students like the real world part of it. And then
Right.
3D and everything is just like a feature upgrade. It's
Right.
That is not the product. 3D is not the product. The
Right.
product is the real world practice. Are students able to follow it? And I also realized that I made things too complicated. In your mind, it's not complicated at all. But if you discuss it with anyone, they will look, because it's in your mind, so you understand, right? But
Correct.
when you're talking it out, that's when I realized that the person is not understanding. So there's something I'm missing out, or I'm not doing right. So I simplified the approach so much, and that's when I started getting validation from people. So I feel like simple things are the most effective solutions. Complex things you can add it later on when people
Right.
already know about that, the why behind why you're doing it. Once they know that, you can do that in different phases. In future, I can have investments of 500,000 when we know that we have created revenue, we have customers who like this approach, and now we want more investment to scale or to create more features into it. So I think uh, that's the thing. Like you said, you feel like that time is wasted, but it happened with Excalibur as well, not just boarding pass to Excalibur journey,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
even in Excalibur journey, I was still focused and attached to that idea of 3D. No, I want to do that. I want to do that.
Right.
But only when I started uh, consistently talking to customers, telling them, showing them, getting their feedback, that is the part where it was the most learning. Most of my learning came from there, which initially I didn't while creating the mentor program or anything with
Right.
boarding
Right.
pass
Right.
exercise. So there were learnings from boarding pass. There are still learnings going on. I'm sure in future, of course, there will be. I always see this as learning part till the end. So it's just a matter of sometimes keeping your ego back and accepting that it's okay that you spent 1 year or 2 years behind it. It's okay, because
Right.
sometimes it's like the opportunity cost. No, I think there's some term. I forgot about it. Uh, Confirmation bias. Is that the word? No, never mind. But I think there is this term when you are trying to. Uh, I, so it's like going to watch a movie in a theater with some expectations and you don't like the movie. So
Oh,
instead
you're
of
talking about
leaving,
sunk cost fallacy.
yes, sunken cost fallacy. Yes, that's right. I saw the term in The Art of Thinking Clearly, the book that I read. Yes.
Right. Right. Right.
So you feel like because you have spent so much time, you have to make
You
it work that
because
way.
you've
But
done so much work. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, because you've done so much work, you've spent so much time. But I think you have to set aside your ego at that point of time. Just come back to your basics. Say it's okay. if you have found a path, don't be afraid to pursue it just because you have spent time on some other thing
Yeah.
doing that. And I think that was one of the reasons for switching to Excalibur as well. Like, I knew for boarding pass, it's not happening. And I feel like hitting a wall, hitting my head in the wall every time. So
Right. Right.
that's also important to know where to stop and where to segue. I have had so many times, even in my Caliber journey in the last 2 years, where I was like about to give up, but then an idea came, I implemented that, it worked. And that's how I understood like entrepreneurial journey is completely unpredictable, as you know, and you have to be comfortable with that unknown part.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm still struggling with that, but I have faith. I have hope.
No, I'll give you another perspective. It's interesting that you spoke twice about, 2 years with boarding pass and then 2 years with Excalibur. I've spoken to founders who were early to the market. Everything's sorted, but they were early. That also happens.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's these are the things that you have no control over, and you just have to trust your
correct.
journey. I think everybody needs to probably trust their journey, and everybody have their own journey at the end of the day. I mean, there's no other way to go about it.
Correct.
That's a thing. I want to ask you this. You realized when you were doing boarding pass for success, okay, you know what, and then you spoke about a course that you wanted to create for engineering students about digital process signaling. I'm sorry if I mispronounced or jumbled that
Yeah,
thing up. And then you realized, okay, K12 is the way to go, right? Now you wanted to solve a problem, but you thought that maybe a different target audience is the way to go. Now, what was your thought process in still sticking to your larger goal being achieved? How did you manage to kind of retain that, but then move to another thing? It's not an easy thing, right?
correct.
Because you're
Yes, absolutely. That's very true. Like I said, you marry that idea so much that you don't want to leave it,
hmm,
right? But that's the thing I learned, that what is your main goal? So my main goal is not having students to rely on marks and giving them a real world application point of view, which helps them in problem solving in future, because marks are not going to help, right? So that is my main goal. Now I started boarding pass for success was one of the approach towards that goal. That doesn't mean that is the only approach. So because in our mind we feel sometimes this is the only way to go, we we do that, and then we get so desperate about making it work, because you feel like if you don't take that approach, you will not meet your goal.
right.
So eventually there are multiple approaches, like even Excalibur is one of the approaches towards
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
doing it.
That's exactly where I'm gonna, where I was
Yes,
thinking of coming at. So instead
yes,
of doing it at the engineering level, you're doing the same thing at the school level
correct,
now. Is the
correct.
only difference, right?
That's the only
And
difference.
who knows? You're in fact accelerating that whole curve, right? By doing it even earlier. They don't even
Absolutely.
have to wait till they're engineering to kind of figure that out. Now you're kind of
Exactly.
laying it out in front of
Absolutely.
them in the school itself.
Yeah, and
Great.
eventually in future, after we have done it for the grades right now, so we are focusing on sixth grade right now, because that's the time when they have learned the
Right.
mathematics basics and are at an age where they understand what real world application is, and like have them in their frame of mind as well. That so we feel that's the stage. But you never know. In future, we do it for more grades, higher grades, and eventually we can do it for engineering students as well. So I was
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about the last step. I was jumping steps, uh, because you start early, see how it is happening, and then you move forward. So yeah.
Right. And one thing I'd like you to, deep dive, you already spoke about it a little bit here and there. Market research on, while you were building Excalibur, because
Correct.
you didn't have an opportunity to do that with boarding pass because the journey was different.
Correct.
And market research is a very vague thing, and there are so many different ways. So,
Yeah.
how exactly did you end up doing market research?
Right. So what I did was, now Canva was new during that time. So whatever was in my mind, actually I should say this. the engineering, how I realized that I shouldn't do it for engineering students and for school students. I think this was an important thing.
Right.
Up to the point where I was working for creating that course for engineering students, it was all
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, creating content for that. But it is
Right.
only when I put together what was in my mind, like visually on Canva, that's when I realized that, oh, wait, this is more towards school students. I don't think this is for engineering students.
Mm.
So, because you have it in your head, you visualize it in a way how it's going to be, but when you put it out there and see it, that's
Right.
when you realize the practical part of it. So I think that was the turning point behind why doing it for school students. So what I did
Right.
was, when I was creating that visuals on Canva of having this 3D sort of an environment, I was just taking different things from Google, just creating that flow that so that I could see it visually and talk to students about it. So I started with science. I took a subject on sustainability. I think
Okay.
there was one topic in eighth grade that I took, and I created a prototype out of it. And then we conducted uh, user studies one on one. How the student likes it, do they like it better? And I think during that phase, we understood that students love the real world approach. So that validated my idea that students love it. So that was a time when I created hypothesis, like what are my assumptions and what I need to validate. I was going by that path, actual entrepreneurial path. So when I did user studies, I asked them the right questions, and it's during that time I got to realize that students still struggle more than science. They still struggle with real world application of math, because they are like, okay, where am I gonna use trigonometry? Where will I use equations? Where will I use algebra? I mean, even
Right.
now you
Right.
see so many reels and memes out there like, oh, I studied this. Where am I using it? Right. So I felt like math was like the low hanging fruit that I could start with first, and I didn't have to educate people about it. People already know about it.
Problem was
So,
already existing. Yeah.
yes, it was already existing. So that's when we created a prototype on math. We created like a simulation for equations. We created like two cars coming in front of each other and creating the path using equations. So we created that on Unity again. And I was fortunate enough to find a person through, again, mutually through my family friend who was a Unity developer. His name is Parth Dodia.
I think he's
He
one of your co-founders, CTO.
that's that's correct. Yes, yes. So he helped me create that prototype for 3D, and we worked on it to get and understand students' point of view on that. Now, although students liked it, but there was this part where parents still felt like it is a game and it is not studying. So I
Mm.
still feel like it is still sometime we haven't reached that point where parents are okay with students playing a game and learning.
Same.
It is still a
Right.
game in the end. For them, it is not studies. So
Right.
then the part came where we also got this that why would I spend money on a game? That was the thing. Because we don't spend money on games. And if you ask parents, they would be like, it is a game. Why would I spend
Okay.
money on a game?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Here's a fun fact for you. I
Yeah.
was equally mind blown when I had this guest. Would you believe it? There is an academy in Bangalore that teaches kids how to play games,
Nice.
like for them
It's
to become
about time
better.
that could be.
Now,
Absolutely.
of course, this is very different from a bigger scheme of things. There is a whole
Yes.
world called as esports, just like how
Correct.
we have physical sport, like cricket,
Yeah.
football, and all that.
I see my
There is
husband
also
watching it
another
every day.
virtual world.
Yeah.
Oh, right. They make money off it.
I
And
know.
yeah, so there is an academy, and parents send, there are those kind of parents also, where kids are being
Yes.
sent to this. So, yeah. And,
Correct.
you're talking about parents wondering, oh, why am I going to spend money and, buy
Yes.
games?
So
So
we
there
are
are,
getting there, but it will still take time. There are parents being aware of it, but I think
right,
it will still take time. If you think from a business point of view, I have understood one thing, like spending time on educating will take a lot of time out of you. And what will
right,
happen is there will be other companies coming in who would leverage that there is education part already being done by someone else, and they would cater more because they have that sales expertise and everything to cater to them. So
Right.
I feel like uh, I have done that with boarding pass for success, and now I want to do leverage that main vision that I have for real world into a system where people understand. So
Right.
it's like, to change a system, you first need to get into the system. So this is the first step towards that. Eventually, we will bring the gaming part of it into it as well. But I cannot just start with that, because it requires, because gaming is not my goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using gaming for the real world approach towards learning is my was one of the approaches, right? So yeah, so during my that market research, like that was the one thing where the other thing is, like I said, when it's a game, even for any other game, just general, uh, not people who are like very much into gaming, but why would I spend money on a game? It should be
Right.
free. Games are like that. So the part where I had to connect edtech with gaming was difficult, and I think that's where the
Mm.
educating part came in. And I
Right.
felt it's. I think I shouldn't go there right now.
Right.
So that's when I realized, okay, I need to have a more simpler approach. Students love that idea, but the other thing to keep in mind that I realized was, let's say if you have to do a course, and I tell you that, oh, there is this course where you could learn it with virtual reality tools, augmented reality, and gaming and everything, you will be very fascinated in the beginning, right? You would use it for a
Yeah.
week, few days. But if you want to learn something, you would have to come back to the basics of, okay, pen, paper, getting my thoughts. Those things, those technologies is just something for you to get interested,
Right.
the
Right.
beginning. But I'm sure if it's a 1 year course, you will not be using virtual reality, augmented reality for that one whole year,
Correct.
at least right now, at this
Yeah.
stage. So I felt, for me to bring Edcaliber into the system of students where they could use regularly for math practice, I have to make it very simple enough, which is integrated in their lifestyle, not as a gaming thing, or those would be like perks that we add later on in Edcaliber. But for them to have, just like Duolingo, it's so simple, right? It's the language learning application. I use it to learn French. It's very simple. There's nothing
Right.
new about it. But yet people use it every day. Why? Because it's simple. I'm
Right.
sure
Right.
if there was like more features to it, like augmented, it would have been nice to explore, but not into my lifestyle as learning right now. So I felt that was the key. And market research, like how we did it with different people, we created like a math prototype, then we did research on it. And I also have like a partner in Surat, in India, where he Savan Arya, his name is, and he has his own coaching classes. So we
Right.
partnered with him, and we did user studies with his students, and he
Right.
is
Right.
very well into this idea of real world focused learning. And he is our sales partner as well, for India, when we launched this year. So we were able to conduct all of these different user studies with different sets of people, and not only in India, but we also did it, the same studies here in Canada and in USA.
Right.
So I felt like, more than in India, people here in North America were more fascinated with the real world approach. Like, I didn't have to explain them what I'm doing. They knew, oh, this is important. In India, there are people who understand the real world part of it, but the main focus is on marks. Okay, is this going to bring marks? Which is equally important. But
Right.
again, we with Excalibur, our goal is to have students practice math, which will eventually help them improve grades anyways. If they like something, if they do it consistently, they will get better at it.
Right.
So we
Right.
are not just focused on marks, but having all students being engaged. And if you see at the statistics right now, 86% of students are not proficient with math. So those people who are really good in math, we people here in North America say that, oh, India is a land where we have great minds. People are good at math and science,
Yeah.
right? But there's still that's only like the top 10% of the students. Like if there is a class,
Yes.
right? Maybe 10 people are good at it, but the remaining 40 are not in a class of 50. So my focus is to cater towards those remaining 40 people on how to make it engaging for them for math. Like when we were doing one of the user studies, there was this student who I was asking questions, and she was in ninth grade, and she said like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I don't like math at all. I mean, I'm not going to take or make a career where math is involved." Because you see, career decisions are based on that as well. So after we did
Yeah.
uh, this user study where she used this simulation to understand linear equations like the slope intercept form. After that, when I asked her, she was so thrilled. She's like, in 15 minutes, you changed my entire perspective of math. So that is what we
Wow.
want to give
Okay.
to the students, to change their perspective of where math is used out in the real world. And it's not limited to just STEM. For any field, math is connected everywhere, in agriculture, in finance, in
Yeah.
art, in whatnot, right? So that's how we bring real world tasks to students so that they could practice and apply math skills rather than just learning. It's more of application that we are focusing on. So that's how my the market research with that caliber went ahead, just getting details from the students. And now we are at a stage where we are starting with 2D, like with all of these user studies that we have received up till now.
Right.
That's what we are incorporating in the phase one of the product right now.
Got it. One of the things that you kept repeating when we spoke about market research was prototype, right? Now, how different is a prototype? I understand prototypes when it comes to, physical stuff. Say, for example, when you're building a car, I understand what's a prototype. But when it comes to a software, how is a prototype different from a real finished software?
Correct. So to answer that, so for us in the edtech industry, especially with EdCaliber, what we are doing is we wanted to create one real world focused simulation. That was the initial idea, to create that one simulation of one concept. That is a prototype.
Basically, you take one concept and not scale up into doing everything. First, take, okay,
That
that's what you're referring to as prototype.
Exactly,
Got it.
exactly. And for edtech industry, it's not like just any other market where you create something simple, you put in the market, will people buy? I cannot expect people to buy it for one concept. If people are looking for
Right, of
edtech,
course.
it's the whole syllabus. Is it
Yeah,
covering it?
yeah.
Yes, then I take it.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah. So I think that is what I refer to as prototype. And
Got it.
I think right now when we are conducting, like I said, I'm incubated at IIM Bangalore NSRCL.
NSRCL, yeah.
So during those sessions, there was one part where it was converting MVP, which is a minimum viable product, to MMP, which is a minimum marketable product.
Right.
Right. So I think that's the whole journey, and they gave a very good visuals for that. It was just like, let's say, if you want to build a car, for example.
Okay.
One approach which is not a right approach is getting resources for wheels, getting
Okay.
things done to make sure that we have resources for wheels and to make the wheels. Then the
Okay.
next stage is, okay, creating the bonnet, or just step by step, getting resources to create that car. And in the end you have a car, but you don't know if people will buy it because it has not been tested. You cannot
Correct.
ask people to test just the wheels just
Correct.
randomly.
Correct.
You cannot
Correct.
ask them to drive if that is not created.
Yeah.
So then all of your efforts have been wasted to get
Correct.
resources and money for wheels, for everything, for color, everything. Doesn't make sense.
Correct.
So then there was a visual where it was wheels, just the main steering wheel and the engine. See the
bare
use of
bones
it.
version.
Yes, make it something that people can use, and then find out, do people like it? Yes, they like it. Okay, they like it. Let's add 2 more seats to it. Do they like it? Okay, let's make it more appealing. And then there was a car. So in both approaches, the end result was a car. But in this part, you have identified its usage, whether it will work or not. And then when you're going into the investment market, like getting investments, right? You can tell them this basic product is something that people loved, paid for it, and now I need money to create more things into it. But you cannot just take the wheels to them and tell them, oh, I need money to create the car.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that was an eye opener for me, and that's where this phase one of the product that I'm creating right now is that bare like wheels
Bare
and
bones.
yes, the bare bones to it. Yes, that's what I'm working on right now. If that is successful, then you go ahead. So I think that was a very important learning part for
It
me.
is. Yes,
Very
yes.
important in entrepreneurial journey. Uh, and I could see a difference after realizing that is the last 2 years because I wanted investment that big, right? I was trying to create a profile that would set with investors because you keep reading about it where people tell you, oh, you need a co-founder to get investment, or you need this to get investment. Like be a sort of person that they know who can work on and making this product that way. I was focused on that, on creating that profile of Excalibur, which is good for investment. So I have let go on so many other people who were not who I felt were not did not fit into the co-founder profile.
Right.
Because people kept saying, "Oh, get a person from IIT, get a person from MIT, or some branded university or company. It will be easier for you to get investment." So I
Right.
felt in doing that and creating that profile,
Profile.
lost focus on why am I doing this. Like I felt like I'm not in this to just get investment. I'm in this to achieve that goal.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it just didn't make sense. Like two things didn't set together.
Right.
But only after I let go of that idea and created a simple approach, it brought my investment down, the time down, the people that I needed. It brought all of those things down. So I bootstrapped. I was able to pay for this product from my family and friends by raising money within that. It wasn't that big an
Awesome.
amount as 5 million. Sorry, $500,000 that I had to raise. So I became so free. Like I did things the way I saw them fit. I
Right.
brought on people on board, not looking at their profile, but the skills and the value they're adding right now. I don't have to show someone that oh, this person is from this certain industry or this, and I don't have to sell the product. I mean, sell the company right now to them.
Right. Right.
that that was also a very good eye opener for me. I used to keep attending these investment sessions, making sure that, and at some point I felt helpless. So my goal was something else and I was doing something else. So only when I started focusing on this first phase of the product, if it gets whenever we get early traction in the future, I think then in future it would be a good time. Okay, I have created this product. We have users, we have revenue. These people help me create this. I want them on board, but I need more money to add these things. And then you go
Right.
to investor. So I feel that makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
have to like impress investors. I'm at equal with them and telling them that I have done it. Initially, I didn't feel it equal. There are people who do it as well, just on idea they get investments. But just I'm not that one of those people.
Right.
I
Right.
just I cannot just sell something if I don't believe in it. I
Right.
cannot just fake it. So I think just doing this, making that first phase the bones of the product, is something that has given me so much confidence that I could speak with any investor, not see them as, oh, this is a person giving me money, because I wouldn't care. If you okay,
Correct.
don't give me money, it's fine, but this is what I want to do. At least I am sure of it. Initially, that was not the case. So I felt that was a really good eye opener. It gave me the confidence, because confidence comes with talking to customers, not just in your mind. It's not in your mind. There are these customers who are willing to pay money for it, who are willing to buy the product, and you also understand the pricing part of it as well, whether it works or not. So I think these two things were eye opener for me going ahead in my journey.
It's interesting because you just said a while back how doing a real job and then attending an interview makes so much difference because there's something to talk about,
Exactly.
right? And that's exactly
Exactly.
what you underwent.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just
Exactly.
not with jobs, right? Anything you
Correct.
want to go
Eh,
get something done, it's better that you've done something, because
Correct.
nothing you can describe as much as the actions that you've done.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I
totally
mean, it's
relatable.
funny because all of those seminars and webinars that we did for students, and even like the I told you, right, I went to the entrepreneurial seminar
Yeah,
to interact with professors, not for entrepreneurship. But I have seen like all of those things that I've done for students.
it's actually
Ultimately, they
helped
have
you.
a learning curve for me, and it has
Yeah,
been wonderful. It is so amazing to like uh, introspect it from that way, and it's been amazing. I love right now. I love being an entrepreneur. Like it's not just with tech, but when I see different solutions in the market of
right,
different
right.
things, it fascinates me so much. Like I love that how people have solved different problems. What approaches did they take? Like I am on these e-commerce websites, not for shopping, but just to see, what are the different solutions that people bring about. It's just like my hobby now. I
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
because
another way of looking at e-commerce websites.
yeah,
Great.
absolutely. Because I have a baby now. He's a 3 month old baby boy. So I keep looking at as a parent now about different things. So those things that we didn't have solutions for our parents when we were kids. There's everything available now. I write the problem, I find a solution, and it is amazing to see what different solutions people bring about. I'm not a shopping person at all, to be honest. Yet, in my spare time, I just keep looking at these websites just to see the product, what they did. So I guess I'm in that frame of mind now where I see everything as like a product and the journey and everything about it.
Yeah, great. I mean, very wholesome is what
Yeah.
is the word that I'd like to use. Uh, Going back to market research, Kushbu, how long did it take for you, and what are the challenges? Did you face any challenges when you did your market research? And if you did, how did you kind of sort those things? Because it is established by now how important market research is, right?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
might as well fail at market research, shut shop, and go,
Yeah,
rather than going all the way and then having to realize that.
absolutely, for sure. And that was the difference between boarding pass and net caliber. That the market research that we did. The main, if you talk about the challenges, uh, I think it was more of understanding the pricing part of it, because it's a very tricky part when you're doing user studies in like when
Mm,
you're doing market research or understanding the pricing. Uh, I came across this model where and it's very later on that I realized one of the challenge was understanding the pricing part. How much would people pay for it?
right.
So that was the thing, because you keep talking to these people, but when the time comes for like paying, I wanted to see how the pricing thing works for them. Like they liked it, but how much are they willing to pay for it? So doing market research around that was a bit of a challenge to understand that. The other thing is also people might say they would spend it, but would they actually spend it or not? Are two different things. So
Mm,
just asking those sort of questions. So it was more of we realized we had to create like a good set of questions where we understand their pain point and what they are already aware of and what they are willing to spend money on. What are they already investing money on? So the thing was for us to realize: are we asking them to spend the money that they're already investing on our platform, or we are asking them to spend extra money on things that are already investing in, but this is something extra. So
right.
just segueing through that part uh, was again a learning curve during our market research, and I think for market research challenge, I wouldn't say there were any challenges. The reason is because I had the Unity developer who could create that prototype, a working simulation. So it was not something I was explaining to the students, and they were actually seeing that. So I think that was I was really grateful to have that
Mm,
part.
okay.
And like I said, we won $10,000 in a pitch competition. So we were able to create a prototype which is out on Android and iOS as well. People can download the prototype for free. We created tasks for so there were like three 2D tasks and one 3D task,
Right.
just to get different perspectives how it is. So we created that for four concepts to see. do people like it or not? So I think money could be a challenge if you have to create a prototype which requires
Yeah.
certain skills. So I was grateful that I had the expertise and the amount the money as well to create that prototype and going forward in market research.
Kushbu, we were. Sorry, I was asking you about prototype. I just had a question. Just lost my train of thought. Just give me 10 seconds. Oh, yeah. While, you mentioned while talking about market research, one of the important things that you spoke about is asking the right questions. And then, so I realized that asking the right questions is also one of the important aspects of doing market research. So did you have to, how much time did you have to spend in questions? Was that a difficult thing? Or because, I mean, it comes across easy. I'm just trying to make sure, what did it really take? Uh, what changes did you have to make? What preparations you had to do? Why do you think that, why so much stressing on the questions is basically what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, that's a good question actually. So initially, I did stress on what sort of questions I would add, but then I felt like it's I have to learn while talking to customers. Like it's on the job, you learn it. So initial set of questions, I did research on them and created them, but I didn't. I'm grateful I didn't do that because I usually do. I didn't focus too much on perfecting those questions. I just went out there, and as I
Right.
was talking to customers, I got different ideas of what I should ask them. So I kept a note of it. So the next time I spoke with a potential user, I made sure I added those questions in as well. So
Can
I
you
think
give me an example?
to think of a specific example,
Any
let's
random
say
stuff?
let's say we started with science, right?
Right.
So when we were talking about subject learning, math was not in the radar. So only when the parents said, "Do you have something like this for math?" That's when our chain of thought started for asking questions about subjects, which are the subjects that they think are
Right.
for
Right.
them.
Right.
Then
Right.
we
Right.
added the other math part about it, like what you don't like, what you like about it. So this is just one small example of,
No. No.
but
Got it. Yeah.
we kept adding questions, and I think I say the same to all the founders who are starting that don't stress too much. Like I attended I make sure I keep attending different webinars and everything so that I don't get full of myself that I know everything. I keep listening to others and see what so I make sure I attend every week one webinar or something like that.
Right.
So one of the webinars I attended, they said, like, usually startup founders are so much focused in making even the prototype perfect that they don't go out. They take a lot of time to go out,
Right.
and
Right.
rather they could have spent less time there, gone out, understand what the user wants, and then made those changes accordingly instead of just understand thinking, oh, this is how you do it. So I felt like one of the things they mentioned was when they wanted to speak to a principal about their product, they just created an Excel sheet, just a flow, and they showed it to the principal and they understood it. They also got a letter of intent for their product. So they didn't have a product, it was just like a flow for them. So I
Right.
feel like just do the bare minimum that you can to get inside, because you feel in your mind like, oh, this requires perfection, this or that, but your customers don't feel that way,
Right.
right?
Right.
So instead you could have spent that time talking to them rather than focusing on making it perfect. So I feel like initially I was at that stage to make it perfect, but then I was like, let's just go out. Let's just go out with it. What's the worst thing they would say? Like, okay, we don't like it, we don't want to buy it. I
Right.
think perfection part comes from that fear that what if customers don't like it? It's just because of that you get to the perfectionist stage. But I think you have to be like okay with the idea that people don't like it, and it's okay. You like it, but maybe it's too early. Like you said, it's still early for that product. It's not the right time, or maybe that product is not feasible. Period. So it's good to take those setbacks initially rather than spending so much time,
Yeah.
money,
Yeah.
resources, everything on that. So even same goes with the set of questions. You will never have a perfect set of questions. I'm telling you right now, to us the users, you will always feel like something is missing, you are missing out on something, but you will only know what is missing once you start talking to the customers.
Got it.
And then you can always improve your questions.
Got it, Kushbu. One other thing that I want to conclude this podcast with, especially after you've said clearly that you won a pitch competition. So, what did you expect to win? What did you get right about your pitch? What are the do's and don'ts?
Correct. So, like I said, giving webinars and seminars, that really helped my pitch because I knew what to address the students. I knew what was important to say and what is not important to say.
Right.
And understanding that in that time crunch, what do I want to convey in that time? So
Right.
of course it takes a lot of, I did a lot of rehearsals, pitching and everything, but I feel like something that comes naturally to you always helps. So I was also part of this Toastmasters organization, and I think that really helped me because you could just go there and talk. Initially, it was difficult for me to see myself speaking. It was weird. Like when I looked at my video speaking, it was like a bit weird. So I had to first get comfortable with speaking my mind
Right.
and be okay with sharing what's on my mind without thinking what other people will think. And I think I got that during the seminars and webinars, consistently giving them every month and talking to so many students. It that automatically gives you the confidence while you are pitching. So I think that was there. Like to speak your mind with confidence was the one thing that helped me for my pitch competition. I knew that my value proposition is unique, so I made sure that I have the right colors and the right images and the right videos to show that. But again, not overwhelming them with too much. So I
Right.
feel pitch should have only the right keywords and something that you want them to see, not too much. They don't want to know too much. If they want to know, they will ask you questions in the Q&A round. But there is a flow that you tell them. Like first of all, whenever you think about pitching or saying something to them, right? Or if someone is talking to you, let's say you are the listener, why would you want to listen to this person? That's the first thing. If you are selling a product, it should touch my pain point, like my nerve of something, right? For example, for my baby, I was looking for the right pillow so that he doesn't get the reflux. Babies have reflux too. I didn't know that
Yes.
until I became.
All the time. I saw that when I had my niece.
Yes, exactly. So if you're selling me a pillow and if you tell me, does your baby have reflux all the time? Are you tired of seeing your baby? Or uh, uh, does it fear you like your baby has reflux all the time, right? So now I'm hooked to that.
Right.
I will listen to you now. So for every pitch, that first hook is very important.
Right.
Then you can segue and introduce other things, but it's a hook that helped me. Like my question to the audience was, imagine the time when you were in school. Did you feel like, why am I studying these theoretical math equations? Where will I use in real world? And majority of the times the answer is yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So they are now hooked. They want to listen. Like, okay, what am I doing to do that? This because they've already gone through that. So I think that helped me. And even in the Q&A round, they asked me a question like, there are so many edtech industries out there using gaming and using these technology, VR, and so many. Like, what makes you different? And I think that was my answer. Like, yes, there are industries that are leveraging these technologies to educate, right? But to educate, that part is still missing. They are incentivizing with, okay, we have here augmented reality tool, right, to learn. Something they're leveraging, but there is still the learning part. Just using augmented reality is not equivalent to learning, right? So that's what I answered them. Like people at tech industries, there are many industries, they're leveraging these technologies to explain the concept, whereas Excalibur is leveraging the same technologies to help them understand real world part of the learning. So that's where it makes a difference. So I think just being conscious of what your competitors are doing and what different you are doing in the industry, especially in the edtech industry, because there are so many industries coming up, and it's about time. Like, there needs to be a change in the education part, and I'm glad that there are so many industries coming up, and I'm a part of that, those companies as well. So I think understanding about the competitors, knowing what you are doing versus what they are doing, also helps you a lot with your pitch.
Just one thing I'd like to, ask you, because I think it's very important. When you were saying you did successfully differentiate yourself by saying that, it's a very subtle difference. Others are leveraging AR, VR, AI, whatever it is, to teach the concepts. You're saying that you differ by bringing the real world part of the learning. Could you give me an example?
Yes,
Could
correct.
you give me an
So
example?
absolutely. So let's say if you go to an edtech platform, they
Right.
are teaching you uh, algebra, okay, linear
Okay.
equations, for example. So there they would teach you. There might be a person explaining the linear algebra concept, and then they are using some augmented reality or virtual reality to show some animated video to understand
Got
that
it.
concept,
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
right?
Right.
Versus what we do is we are still giving you a simulation, a gaming platform, but our approach is how can you use linear equations to help a space scientist with fuel calculations?
Got it.
So
Got
now
it.
you're not learning a concept, you're applying the concept. And while
Yeah.
applying, you're still learning step by step, right?
Right.
So I think that is how we differentiate ourselves. Is the teaching part is something that teachers do in school as well, and they are really
Correct.
good at it. It's every teacher is excellent at explaining concept, but the thing is that even if people explain concept in an amazing way, that doesn't mean the student will be interested to learn about the concept,
Right. Right.
because there are MIT courses, professors at MIT giving lectures, they're available for free. Why isn't
Right.
everybody watching it, right? It's because they're not, it's of interest. Why would I do it? So by in EdCalibre, that's what we focus on. Why would you use algebra? Okay, to help a space scientist with fuel calculations. And by doing
Right.
that, you're also learning what a space scientist does through that curve. Sorry.
No problem. I totally get it, because I. Do you have some
Yeah,
water with you? Yeah.
yeah, I do. Sorry,
You've
thank you.
spoken for almost 90 minutes now, so
Yeah,
yeah, you need to
yeah.
hydrate your vocal
Yes,
cord a little bit, maybe.
that's fine. No, I loved interacting through this platform. It's been a long time since I spoke this much. Again,
Right.
getting us.
Right. Right.
But just to echo again to what I was saying earlier, that is what the differentiating point
Yeah.
is about why.
Got it.
Like, it's again the hook. Like I said about the pitch, you need to
Right.
hook the students first, and then tell them why. I mean, how and why and everything about it.
No, I get it. It just took a while for me to just kind of click, because edtech platforms would somebody would draw a circle on the board, and somebody else would use AR, VR, or AI, whatever it is, to draw that circle in an animated way, in a colorful way, in a 3D way, whatever it is. But it's
Yeah,
still the same. It does
yeah,
not. It is only enhancing the presentation part of a teacher drawing that circle on a board.
correct.
But as you say, if you can go a step ahead and show people where exactly a certain concept is used, of course, nothing like it. And in
Yeah,
fact, it will kind of give clarity to children or students who are learning whether that's what they want to do or not.
absolutely.
Um, so they can
Because there are
directly,
students who, let's say, you show that concept to them, the students would just think it as a something to learn because they have to get marks.
yeah, yeah,
But if there
correct,
is a student who doesn't like math, but because of this approach, and if they're interested in fashion or something like in finance or
right,
anything, and you give them a question regarding fashion industry, like there's a fashion event coming up, how can you use algebra to help this
yeah,
fashion designer make it a success,
yeah,
right? Any person who is not interested in math as well might be interested in the why, in the
right,
problem statement, and
right,
it gives them the hook to
right.
continue.
Got it, Kushbu. Kushbu, it's been a pleasure. This was literally like a mini, a deep dive into early stages of a startup.
Right.
Not many people talk about, and especially yours was unique because you had two actual startups to compare, like Boarding Pass for Success and Ed Caliber. The
Yeah.
mistakes that you did there and the corrections you did in Ed Caliber, and the entire walkthrough of market research and all that. These are just invaluable. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure, and the icing on the cake is edtech, right? You're talking about a particular education entrepreneurship.
Correct.
So even for small course creators, there's so much that they can take away from market research part, because so many people say sell first, build later, and some people say first go interact with your audience. And the way you spoke about prototype, and how just do one small part of your course, and then that's where I was making the link to, because a lot of our audience, we are expecting them to be course creators, small time, who are teaching their niche expertise and
Correct.
stuff like that. So wait, I somebody were teaching how to put babies to sleep. So it goes down to as such things like that, right? So there are infinite things that people are teaching about today in their
Yes.
everyday day-to-day life stuff. So I think I found this very valuable. Thank you so much for indulging me, kind of going deeper and deeper as I was questioning you. It was a pleasure, and I'd love to I thought I did, I spoke a lot about your processes, the way you kind of build your thought process. I feel I've not explored or dove deep into Ed Caliber itself. But given that you are in your early stages, I'll probably get back to you 6 months down the line and see where you are. I'm sure you're going to be somewhere, and that would be an interesting conversation as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, thank you for inviting me to this platform. I'm glad that I was able to contribute through my experiences and maybe stop someone else from making the same mistakes I did. Uh,
Exactly.
Even if one
That's
person, and I mean, sees it,
the
it's
purpose is achieved.
purpose is
Yeah.
absolutely. So no, I'm glad, and thank you for bringing up such an initiative. I'm just looking forward to hearing your other podcasts as well. Thank you for
Sure. Thank you.
creating this and accumulating this insights and experiences of tech professionals, especially. Thank you. I'm glad to be a
Thank
part
you.
of it.
Thank you, Kushbu.